Okay, I think in terms of time, we better make a start. Great to see you. And as I say, I know there was a lot of interest on the topic. So hopefully people will watch the recording back if they can't make it live. If things pop up, I'm sure there you go. True to, I knew as second I started, people would start joining. So there we are. So if you have just joined, welcome along. Welcome to this month's webinar. My name's Westy. I'm digital director here at People Unboxed. And today I'm really pleased to share some great tools, fun tools, I guess, that I've been using recently. As we go through the session, feel free to chat in the chat if you want to and share your thoughts and experiences throughout the session. Don't worry about taking frantic notes at this stage. We'll be sharing a recording of this webinar along with some extra resources after the session. So all I ask for you to do at the moment is to keep an open mind. Now, we know AI isn't for everyone. It makes some people nervous, but rather than just throwing buzzwords around, I thought I would share with you today how I actually use some tools or some AI tools in particular to get stuff done. Not to do my work for me, but to help me be more productive, certainly when I'm designing learning. Now, if you saw the webinar I did last year, and I can't believe it was actually a year ago, and we started talking about the growth of AI, you'll know that for me, AI won't replace human leaders. I don't believe that's going to be the case. However, I do also believe that leaders who effectively leverage AI may well replace those who don't. So it's something that we need to be aware of, something that we need to be using, and certainly something where we can see where it fits into our line of work. We need to consider that the future lies in human and AI collaboration, and certainly not human versus AI competition. I'm just going to check to make sure if anybody else is joining. There you go, there's one there. Lovely. Okay. So what are we actually going to do today? What's our plan? How are we going to do this stuff? So I think by way of a quick agenda, we're going to take a look at three different uses of AI in helping us to create and deliver training content. They're all a bit of a different take. So one of us helps us research, one of us helps us create, and one of us is going to help, or one of them is going to help it all stick. And if that sounds good for everyone, I hope it does. Hopefully you're on the right webinar. I think it's about time we get started. So the first thing we need to think about is in this fast-paced contemporary world that we live in, the demands on learning and development are higher than ever. So we're always faced with skill changes, the need for ongoing upskilling, the complex challenge of ensuring that people retain and effectively use the information that we, provide with them through the training that we give them. And that's a lot to ask. And we need help sometimes. Therefore, it can be quite reassuring, in my opinion, that technology can help provide a solution and assist us in effectively addressing some of those challenges. And the tools we'll look at today, I hope, are part of that solution. And that brings us to AI. It's fair to say it's no longer a futuristic concept that, it's based on science fiction. It's a powerful and tangible reality, and it's already transforming industries across the board, probably in and out of work. And learning and development is certainly no exception to that. However, again, it's really important that we recognize AI isn't here to replace the invaluable human expertise. Your creativity, your nuanced understanding that, let's face it, only us L&D professionals can actually bring that stuff to the table. So instead, it's here to serve as a powerful co-pilot, if you look at it that way. It's a way of amplifying our capabilities and our skills. It certainly doesn't do the work for us, but it rather equips us with intelligent tools that allow us to, I guess, be more significantly more efficient, unlock levels of creativity and content design, ultimately be far more impactful in developing our learners. So think of it as that. Think of it as a multiplier for the skills we've already got, enabling us to achieve more faster with greater precision. And if it can do that, that means it frees us up to focus on the strategic and the more human-centric aspects of learning, the bits that we're good at. Those are the bits that make the difference. Those are the bits that we can do and it can't. So with that in mind, I think it makes sense to look at what it's good at but also keeping in mind what we're very good at ourselves. So I want to start by looking at something that powers many of the AI tools that we have at our disposal, and that's called Google Gemini. Now, you might think I was about to say ChatGPT, but much as Hoover has become a word that people use to describe any maker vacuum cleaner, ChatGPT has become synonymous with AI tools. In reality, it's just one of several large language models available. Gemini is another one. It's part of the Google suite. It's free to use. And in my experience, I'd argue slightly more conversational and therefore more accessible than ChatGPT is. So what does it actually do? Well, I guess the best way to think of Gemini is see it as the brain that powers a lot of the features that we're going to be exploring today. So it's a highly capable, what Google call a multimodal AI model, which basically just means it can understand and generate text, images, interpret things from audio and video. So it basically lots of different modes of learning, if you like. It can understand all of those and work with them. Now, as you can see in the picture on the slide there, I actually use Google Gemini in a slightly different way. For me, it's replaced Safari as the browser on my phone. Now, again, you might think, well, what's wrong with your browser on your phone? The answer is nothing. But when I actually thought about what I was using the browser on my phone for, it was always to do quick research, to check stats, to ask a question, to say, what is this, or what's this plant, or how do I get from here to here? It was always questions. It was always research. And that's exactly what Gemini is great at. So in the past, I would have opened Safari, gone to Google, typed in my question, but now I just simply press that one button, I launch Gemini, and it opens ready to take my prompt. And therefore, it saves me a ton of time. So think of it as the engine that helps us with smarter content creation and therefore increased efficiency as well. Imagine you can prompt Gemini to brainstorm ideas for a new training module or draft initial knowledge check questions. It's a really good starting point for almost any content. So just so I can get a feel for, we've only got a few of you on, unfortunately, at this point, but just so I can get a feel for the room, can I ask you sort of one question? Just pop in the chat for me on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10. How comfortable are you currently experimenting with AI in your role? Okay, and we'll say that 1 is it scares me to death, I go nowhere near it, and 10 is, yeah, bring it on. So 1 to 10, how comfortable are you in experimenting with AI tools in your role at the moment? Pop that in the chat for me. Okay, we've got 7 from Adele. Sophie, Monica, what do you think? Yeah, well, there's a lot of fence sitting going on. 7 seems like a safe answer. Okay. Oh, look at Sophie with the 10. Love that. Fantastic. I mean, a bit of a mixed response, and that's fine. The good news is, for those of you who are slightly dubious and not quite sure where it fits in, you don't have to go all in. So AI tools are very nuanced. We can start small and build up as our confidence grows. So, let's dip our toe in, but at the same time, don't feel like it's all or nothing. So what I would like to do now is do exactly that. I'm going to dive into 3 of the tools that I'm using and do a bit of a deeper dive into them, I guess. And remember, all of these use AI as their backbone and we're going to sort of look at it from my world, which is a bit of a learning and development background. But I'm sure as we'll go through this, you'll realize it's just as likely that we'd be using this for HR systems and writing policies and whatever it may be. So let's do that right now. So firstly, we're going to talk about a tool that many of you likely know and possibly even use or have used in the past. And this is Articulate. Now, Articulate's the company. We may have used Articulate Storyline back in the past, and that's sort of been Storyline's still around, but most people now use something called Articulate Rise, and it's part of the Articulate Rise 360 suite. It's a really nice way of writing e-learning without having to understand coding and design and that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of a favorite for rapid e-learning development. and for good reason. It's really quick and simple to use. And as I say, it's got this zero code approach. So basically, if you can work in PowerPoint, you're probably pretty good at working in Rise already. But what if I told you that that Rise system has now gone on in leaps and bounds, and that familiar friend now has a smart AI assistant built right in? So think how much faster and easier it's now going to be to create those engaging courses that you probably did before, but maybe it took you a little bit of time to get going on it. And this is the way it works. So Rise AI Assistant is a great way to think of it as this way to get started. So no more staring at a blank screen. You can simply prompt the AI to generate text for various sort of blocks or pieces of content. That could be lists and processes and statements and accordions and all of that stuff that we've had in e-learning for a while, but it basically creates them for you. Now, that sounds kind of scary, but think about that for a second. It's going to enhance and help you create content. It's not necessarily going to do it for you, so keep that in mind. So, for example, you could ask it to generate a process for onboarding new employees, and it will provide an outline and a really nice first draft for that. Obviously, it doesn't know the specifics of what you're going to do for your employees, but it's a really nice starting point. Is it perfect? Of course it isn't, but it can dramatically cut down on that initial writing time and overcome that writer's block. Now, Articulate have done a really nice job of integrating the AI tools into the existing Rise interface. So if you've used Rise in the past, it's going to feel right at home, which is great. Things just appear where you would expect them to appear and where you want them to be. Now, sure, you could achieve a very similar result using something like ChatGPT or Gemini. Use those to generate your course outline and then create text blocks. But that's kind of missing the point, because by being integrated into an existing tool that you're used to using, there's no more switching between apps, there's no more cutting and pasting and all of that nice stuff. So, we can just get to it much quicker in one tool. And I guess as a starting point, Rise AI can help us build an outline for our course. I'm going to live demo this for you in a minute, so wish me luck with that. But we do need to give it some simple instructions. What we want to cover, who the target audience is, maybe at any objectives that we want people to achieve when they finish this course. And then beyond text, Rise AI can also create the images that go within our courses. So forget about hours of searching on stock photo sites or worrying about the rights to use images from Google search and all the rest of it. All of that can be done directly within Rise as well. You just need to describe the image you want. Perhaps, I don't know, two people collaborating on a project in a modern office, illustration style. And the AI will generate various styles for you to choose from. I think it gives you 4 as default, and you can basically just pick which of those images you like the best, and bang, there it is. It's in your course. But here's the thing. Like all AI, it isn't magic. So as always with AI prompts, you need to provide the detail. And this is a rule of thumb for AI across the board, no matter which tool you're using. Sparse prompts will lead to unexpected results. Okay. Now, your request may seem obvious to you, but AI tools take things pretty literally. So do be careful when you're writing those prompts. Crafting prompts correctly is probably the biggest hurdle to get over when you start working with AI tools. And from my experience, back in the early days of using Siri in my car, I won't be asking it to tell my wife I love her again, which, let's be honest, we know what I wanted to happen. What I didn't want to happen was for my wife to get a completely out of context message that simply said, I love her rather than I love you. So be a bit careful with that. She said, who? What do you mean? So yeah, be very careful. It takes it very literally. It did exactly what I asked it to do, but that's exactly not what I meant. So anyway, moving on. So be as descriptive as you can with those prompts. The less you say, the more the tool has to guess to fill in the gaps. Think of it that way. So what's the rule of thumb here? Well, aim for at least 6 descriptive words per prompt to ensure you get what you want. And don't just say more, but be very precise with it too. If you want a picture of a dog, don't say dog. Say poodle or golden retriever. What sort of dog do you want? What colour hair do you want? How long do you want its tail to be? Instead of tree, say oak tree or pine tree. Or think about something like try a painting in the style of Vincent van Gogh instead of just saying give me a painting, because there's millions of those that it can pull from. The more specific you can be, the better the results tend to be. And once you get used to it, it can be a huge time saver, and it ensures your visuals are pretty perfectly tailored to your content. So that's images, but it gets even better. The AI assistant can also generate quiz questions. Now, as someone who writes e-learning regularly, the bit that I hate doing is writing the question bank afterwards. Not writing the questions, that's fairly easy. The difficult bit is thinking of the distractor answers that go with them and are still kind of possible answers. AI is brilliant at doing that. So it can help me generate quiz questions and feedback based on the course content. And then that ensures that the knowledge checks are relevant. And it's also really good at creating those course summary slides too. The one we put right at the end and say, here's your call to action. Again, it knows what the content is, so it can do that for us. And plus, you can even use it to refine your existing text. So if you're getting really wordy, it can summarize long paragraphs. It can expand on brief points if you only put bullet points in. It can rephrase for clarity. It can even adjust the tone to be more conversational. So in some ways, it's like having a bit of an editor and a proofreader built in, and it just kind of works. So let's have a quick look at it now. I'm going to jump across to another screen, and I'm going to share Rise with you, and we're going to try and do this live and see how we get on. So here we are over on Rise. I'm going to stop sharing that screen and give me a second to share another one. Go. Yeah, perfect. Okay. I've got sound on. Yeah, cool. Okay. So what we should be looking at here is this is Rise. Okay, so this is our normal sort of standard Rise dashboard. Hopefully you can see that. And what we're going to do is we're going to literally create a new course. So we click on create new. We're going to create a new course. And what we're going to do is start with AI. Okay, we could do a blank course. We could write our own, but you know what? We've got the power of AI, so let's use that. So we're going to start with AI. Okay, and basically what it's going to do is ask us a couple of questions. So the first thing it's going to do is it needs to create an outline for this course. So let's say this course is about meetings. So I've got some text so that I don't have to type everything in. Okay, well, so our course is about hosting engaging meetings. Okay, and who's it aimed at? Well, we're going to say it's aimed at meeting hosts and attendees, which kind of makes sense. And we're going to say specific learning objectives are making meetings more effective, ensure we have the correct people there, and that all voices in the room are heard. Now, the bit below it, let's see if I can zoom in a bit for you. There you go. The bit below it allows us to add some content that you can reference when it's creating this course. So in this scenario here, let's imagine we've got an existing face-to-face course for this, and I just want to write an e-learning course that supports that. So what I can do, if I can drag in a PDF, and this is a PDF of the slides from that course. So it's got an idea of the layout and the images and that sort of stuff. And the other thing I'm going to do is drop in the actual PowerPoint itself. So what's the difference? Well, obviously, if it pings in the PowerPoint, excuse the motorbike going past. If it brings in the PowerPoint, it can now read all of the notes from that PowerPoint as well. So anything I've got in those note slides, that's going to help me. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to paste in a bit of text. Okay. And we can paste in anything pretty much. And it's just bear in mind, it's going to use all of this when it's trying to organize a structure for this course. Okay, we should be good to go. We could click on continue. And it's going to create an outline for the course. And here it comes. Look how fast it is. It's crazy. So lesson one's going to be about preparing for an effective meeting. Then it's going to create an agenda that excites, facilitate meeting. Now, quickly scanning through this, and again, not uncommon with AI tools. I'm looking at lots of summarizing with Zs, and there's a lot of American spelling in here. So what I'm going to do is I can tweak it a little bit, and I'm going to say, actually, can you make this UK English, not American English? Okay, nice and simple. And we should see as it goes through. yeah, we've now got summarizing spelt correctly and English spellings and all of that nice stuff. So we'll let it do its stuff. We'll let it finish. Seems like it's slowing down a little bit. Thinking about it. There we go. We're done. I can change the focus. I can reorder the lessons. But you know what? For now, just for this demo, I'm going to say, okay, I'm happy with this outline. Away we go. So what it's now going to do is basically create this course for me. And boom, there it is. It's already done. So, and it's got a nice little heading for it. It's broken it down into different lessons. Now, there's no content in here at the moment because we're the expert. We need to decide which content to use. So let's do that now. Let's add some content to this preparing for effective meetings piece. We're going to create a lesson. And again, it's already suggesting it. We're going to use AI. So we're going to use an AI block. Now, what's happened here is at the bottom, it's looked at our course outline and it's suggesting some topics it thinks fit in for this preparing for an effective meeting. So I'm going to say, yeah, what's really important, or the first bit of learning I want to do is about setting clear meeting objectives. So let's get it to use that. And the type of block I'd like it to do is, let's say an accordion, which is all classic e-learning stuff, I guess. So basically, it's going to break it down into four different sections. We're going to use that. Here it goes. So basically, it's now looking at that source content, creating the content for me. Let's insert that block. And boom, there's the first piece of our learning done with the little fold downs. Okay, it's broken into different sections. I mean, it's not very text image heavy, but we can obviously adjust that if we want to. And we're going to add another one here. I want this one to be about determining if a meeting is necessary or not. And we're going to use flashcards for that instead. Okay, so let's get it to do that. Insert that block. And again, look how quickly it's doing it. Why are we meeting? So it's now got flip cards with bits on the front. It's got the text on the back. And obviously I can go in and edit any of this. And the final one we're going to do, I'm going to say it's about identifying key stakeholders. And this one, I'm going to challenge it a bit. I want it to do a sorting interaction for me. So let's see if it can do that. Okay. Do you want to, no, I'm quite happy with that. That looks okay to me. And then, again, we could pop that in if we wanted to pop that in. So the other thing we might want to do is have an image here. So let's add an image. Sorry. Try that again. Let's add an image. Couldn't see image for looking. And we haven't got an image. So we're going to get it to generate an image. And what do we want this image to be? Well, let's say we want it to be, don't know, a group of people looking frustrated and bored at a meeting in an office with a boring PowerPoint on the screen. Okay, and we get to choose the style. I'm going to ask it to do that in abstract expressionism. There we go. And generate the image. Okay, and there you go. It's going to have generated four images for me, quite like this one at the bottom, but actually, you know what? I'm thinking more of a wider view. So let's use this one. And boom, there you go. That's pretty much us done. If we preview what this looks like now as a piece of learning, we've got our image in there. We've got all our builds coming in. We've got our boxes. Everything's working exactly as we would expect it to do. And let's just say, but just for fun, what we also want it to do is we go to the AI assistant up here and say, actually, can you generate a knowledge check for me, or can you generate a summary slide? Because I never like writing those summary slides, so we can get it to do that. So let's generate a lesson summary, and I'm going to say make this a call to action and motivation, whatever. Okay, and we generate that. So I'm telling it the style I would like it to use, ideally. And boom, there it is. Effective meetings are a cornerstone of productive teamwork. Like you define objects, do this, take charge of your meeting to stay in space. So is it perfect? It isn't perfect, but that's taken us, looking at my stopwatch, that's taken us about 6 or 7 minutes to get to sort of this stage. And don't forget, we've also got a full outline there. So, I'm just going to switch back now to my other screen. So if I stop sharing that, jump back over there. looking for. Okay, and then if I come back over here to you, so that Raise AI, it's if you use Storyline, it has similar functionality built in. It brings massive time savings, accelerating development of the courses. What it allows me to do is overcome writer's block and explore fresh ideas. So I know that I can lay out the content in a slightly different way, or see what it's going to look, or allows me to compare one thing with another. Most importantly, it frees up my time to focus on what really matters, and that's crafting the learning strategy in the first place and enhancing the learner experience. So it's I've got the time to apply the critical thinking rather than spending hours on the routine content building and drafting. Now, Rise AI in Rise is a powerful assistant, but it's your human expertise that's still crucial for the quality, the accuracy. Don't just press a button and assume it's done. That's not the case. It's structuring the course for you, writing the knowledge check questions, creating the images. It's not replacing your skills and your knowledge. So you want to be, and you want what if let's just assume, I don't know, let's assume you wanted your masterpiece that you've created in French or Spanish. Well, it's got you covered there as well. So localization, or AI localization in Rise, can translate your course into more than 70 languages, and it manages all of the language versions as a single project. So once you say do a French version and then you update the English version, the French version updates as well. It's crazy the amount of times it's saving. So it's worth pausing for a second there just to deal with, I guess, one of the concerns that some companies have when we're using AI, and that's all around security. So, for example, a major concern for any generative tool is whether the content you input, so in this case, I uploaded a PDF and a PowerPoint. So is that going to be accessible by everyone else? Is everyone else going to be able to see that? Is it going to help train the AI model and that's all going to be served up to other users? Well, the answer to that is no. Articulate in particular requires no data retention at all with their sub-processors. What does that mean in the real world? It means, yes, they look at your content, yes, they process it, but it's never saved anywhere, it's never used anywhere else. So in short, your data is processed, but then not stored, not used, and that's pretty important for data security. So Rise is a great start. What we are going to do now, though, is look at something that's a little bit different and a slightly newer, I guess. This is quite new to the market. I'm assuming some of you won't have seen this before. And it's a bit of a switching of gears. So imagine when you're starting a new course or a new project, you feel absolutely swamped by the sheer amount of information you need to process. That could be research papers, internal documents, web articles. You could have policies and procedures, and they're spread across multiple drives, and there's multiple different files of documents and everything else. Even maybe it's recorded messages, or someone's, there's a podcast you want to use, or there's a video that you've got. Well, let's say we have pulled together a load of content about how to run great meetings, similar to what we did before. So let's continue to use that as an example. In fact, we get to the point where we've got so much stuff that we're getting lost in what's important and what is just duplicated noise. And this is where information overload becomes a major roadblock, but it's also where our next tool, it's called Notebook LM, it absolutely excels. This one, I hope, is going to blow your mind because it did mine when I first saw it. So let me take you through what it does. So imagine having a super smart research assistant that helps you not just store information, but understand and work with your own content. So it's only looking at your content. And by only looking at that content, it then enables you to question, cross-check, summarize across multiple document sources. So unlike your chat GPTs of this world, Notebook LM is grounded in your sources, meaning it only uses your documents that you provide. Therefore, the training is more relevant, or the briefing guide for your people on a certain policy is only relevant to your content. So this makes its answers really accurate for your business and relevant to your specific needs. So I think it's fair to say we all have a ton of policies, PowerPoints, meeting notes, and they're all over the place. Well, this is where Notebook LM really can help. So how does it do that? Well, first up, you create a notebook, hence it being called Notebook. And that could be for a project or a topic. And then you basically point it at a load of source materials. Now, these can be some examples on the screen there: PDFs, Google Documents, websites, Or a really powerful one for me in L&D is YouTube videos. So let's say there's a TED Talk video that I like, or a podcast in particular, and just by pointing to that, we don't have to download it, we don't do anything like that. We literally point um, to that video, and what Notebook LM will do is transcribe it, pick up the sort of meaning behind it, if you like, analyze it, and then allows us to use that when we're creating more documents. I'll show you this in just a second because I think you're really going to like this. So once your sources are uploaded, you can then start interacting with them. So what do we mean? Well, you can ask it questions like, what's the main argument in this policy document? Or can you summarize the key takeaways from these three articles for me about remote working? And it provides concise answers, but it also shows you where it's got those answers from. So it links back to your original source document. So it might say, and this answer came from this policy document over here, and this answer came from our handbook. And again, let me show you how it works. So let's change screens again. And we're going to jump back into Safari. Go. Okay, hopefully you can see Safari there, and I'm going to jump into Notebook LM. So this is, I've got some notebooks already set up here. If I go back to my main notebooks, a couple here about BentoBot that we work with. We'll talk about BentoBot in a minute, actually, and People Unbox. There's one here for, this is a great use for it. So in fact, let me go in. I'm sure she won't mind. So I host a podcast, and I needed to do a load of research about someone who owns two businesses. So what's the best way of doing it? How's the best way for me to quickly get up to speed about this person, Jo Harley? Well, I had some documents that she'd shared with me. I've pointed to two different websites for her two businesses. I pointed to a couple of her YouTube videos, and then basically got it asked the question, what questions should I ask if I was interviewing this person? And lo and behold, it said, well, I'd ask them about this and this and this and this. And it's so much easier for me to sort of get that information all collated for me. However, in the example we're going to use, we're going to keep looking at this mastering meetings. So just for time purposes, I've already added some sources. So what have I added? I've added in a PDF I had from the University of Cambridge. My daughter gave me this one and said, here's what we teach about effective meetings. Fine. We've got our magic meeting slides as we had before. I've found this YouTube video on run meetings that don't suck. I've got a bit of text that I've got from somewhere else about the use of mastering the art of effective meetings. And I've also got our Word document. Again, it's in PDF format, but it's the facilitator guide that we use when we're doing a face-to-face course for this topic. And don't forget, what's happening here is we can add as many resources as we like, but it's only going to reference these resources. It's not going to go out to the internet and search a load of stuff that isn't relevant to us. It's only using our stuff. And then when it comes to, we can then start asking it some questions. So it does suggest some. Let's say this one. What strategies and tools can be employed across meeting phases to overcome common inefficiencies? Well, there's one question, and I'm going to ask it another one, which is, I'm going to also ask it to give it a second to catch up. Okay, so what it's doing is it's referenced all of that content on the left-hand side there, and basically has put together like a document for me, or a note, saying, here's some of the tools that we can use. A bit long for what I need, but you know what? It's a really good starting point. You may notice the numbers in here. When we hover over any of the numbers, it's telling us where it's got this information from, which of the source documents, which parts of the source document is it referencing to give me that answer. And if I want to, I can click on that, and it literally takes me to that section to say, and this is where I'm getting that answer from. Now, if I quite like this, I can click it and save it as a note. And it's now saved it over here to the right-hand side of the screen as a note for me to use. I can reference that going forward. I could put in my own questions as well, like give me 5 top tips to run effective meetings. So that's a little bit similar. It's only going to give me 5 things, I'm hoping anyway. So there's another one that I can create there. Whilst it's doing that, I'll quickly explain what else it can do. So Yes, it can make notes and it can ask questions, or we can ask questions of it and create little text notes. But it can also do things like create frequently asked questions. There you go. It's already done that next one. Here's the top 5 things it thinks I need. So I'm going to save that as a note as well. So let me explain how you might use that. So let's imagine you put in here a 20-page policy document on, I don't know, remote working. And you've got a few other bits and pieces, documents, maybe HR documents, and you can put all of that in. It's only going to reference those, don't forget. So it's only going to work around and give you relevant answers. But then you can click on FAQ and say, okay, produce a frequently asked questions document based on all of this stuff. And then you can literally cut and paste that and put that on your website, or you can give that as a resource for your learners. And it's already done it for us. So, here's the FAQ. What defines an effective meeting? How can a meeting facilitator manage discussions during a meeting? Whatever it may be. So it's picking out what it thinks is the key documents, the key elements of that document, and saving that for you. Again, we can save it as a briefing document if you want someone else to. We can even get it to create a study guide. So, imagine pulling all this together for like a student, for example. It can then also create things to test you. It can create outlines for courses. It's absolute bonkers. Now, waiting for the killer function. It can also go one step further. And when I first saw this, it's fair to say, as a podcast producer, there were equal measures of that's the coolest thing I've seen in a long time, and this scares the life out of me. So hopefully what it can do is it can produce an audio overview of the content. Now I'm just going to play a little bit of it. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this using my computer sound. So bear in mind, this took Notebook LM, using all of the content I've given it so far, probably about 3 or 4 minutes to produce. So just I'll listen to a little snippet and see what you think.
Meetings, love them or hate them.
Exactly. And more specifically, we're unpacking the truly pivotal, often underestimated role of the meeting facilitator.
Right.
We've pulled from a diverse stack of sources that don't just tell us what to do, but really dig into the how and why behind turning a, let's be honest, sometimes dreaded meeting into something genuinely powerful. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the facilitator isn't just, a moderator keeping time. They are fundamentally the architect.
Yeah, thanks, Adele. That was my reaction too. I was like, "What is that? It's crazy." Now, you might think that's a bit of a trick, and how can that possibly be useful? But think about how that can possibly be useful. Think about what it's doing there is ultimately it's producing content that you can listen to on the go. Okay, so let's say, for example, imagine listen to an AI discuss your research papers or your internal reports while you're commuting or exercising. It really is, a great way to do learning on the go made easy. My daughter's using this as part of her university studies, and she's saying to get someone to explain back to her a range of different research papers, white papers, whatever. And she said, I just listen to it when I'm at the gym. It's like a 10-minute discussion that gives you an idea of what's happening. I think it can be really, really useful. For L&D professionals, Notebook LM's incredibly valuable. And if you do one thing just for fun later tonight, and it's a free tool, right? So just start a new notebook and point it at your website. Okay, we did it for People Unboxed, and it has this discussion about today we're going to discuss People Unboxed, and it's great, and they do this, and it's just picking all of this stuff up from the website. It's absolutely mind blowing. So you can quickly get the hang of really complex topics for new courses, and easily pull together research for your learner strategy, and create extra materials for students. Now, of all of the things I've played with, it's probably the biggest game changer. So for anyone who needs to quickly understand, organize, and extract insight from a lot of information, it's great. So whether you're in the L&D field or the HR field, it can work in both ways. And don't forget, it's only working on your content. So it's specifically designed to address many of the security concerns that teams and organizations have when it comes to using AI. So content you upload remains private to you. Okay. It's not used to improve Google public AI models or anything like that. So it offers, really robust features for AI secure teams, enabling them to use AI for research and content creation, whilst also allowing you to control the data, ensuring privacy and complying with regulation. So that is number 2. There you go. Notebook LM, number 2. It's certainly the second tool that I'm absolutely being blown away with at the moment. It can work an absolute treat. And don't forget those Audible overviews. They're fantastic. Okay, now we've got about 15 minutes left, which gives us perfect time to cover our last tool. And our last tool tackles a slightly different problem. So we spend so much time crafting incredible experiences and powerful content, as we've already said, that's exactly what we do. Sorry, wrong camera. But let's be honest, how much of that knowledge actually sticks long term? And this is why we need a solution like BentoBot. So BentoBot is a micro-learning platform engineered specifically to combat what we call the forgetting curve and ensures that knowledge really sticks. And it does it by leveraging 2 really powerful concepts. One is spaced repetition, and the other one is gamification. So let's face it, people forget stuff, right? It's just how our brains work. It's a huge problem when we need critical information to be retained. Now, according to Harvard, only 12% of employees apply new skills that they've learned on programs, or L&D programs in particular, to their jobs. Okay, 12%. And modern studies show that we only remember about 50% of the information that we've been told within an hour of learning it. That means that within an hour of this podcast finishing, you'll have remembered maybe 1 or 2 things, because we've done 3, right? So you're going to have forgotten most of it. And that goes up to an average of 70% within 24 hours. So crucially, the rate at which we forget can be slowed down, but only by being reminded or repeated of things at the right moment. And this is the basis of spaced repetition, repeating things over a set period of time and set intervals, catching things when we're just about to forget them, I guess. So it allows us to overcome the forgetting curve and increases our knowledge retention. In a way, it's basically like, imagine it exercising your memory muscles until your brain thinks, actually, this is a bit of information I do need to remember. And that's when it sticks. We put it back into deep memory at that point. Having said that, we all remember things differently, right? So if we all did the same course, we're going to remember different bits, and therefore we're going to have varied knowledge gaps. And this is where BentoBot uses AI to really shine. So it's not writing the content for it, it's using AI in a slightly different way. So let me take you through how it works. It's magic. It delivers bite-size content. Again, there's that multimodal word, meaning in this case, short bits of learning that might include text, images, videos, audio, simple games, and that's all delivered right to your learner's phone. Excuse me, in no more than sort of 3 to 5 minute chunks every day. So tiny little bite-sized bits, because they're not going to remember more. They're just going to forget this stuff. And yet at its core is an AI-driven spaced repetition engine. So instead of using traditional quizzes at the end of a course, which is basically seeing what you can remember, BentoBot intelligently represents information at increased intervals. Just when you're about to forget it, you're going to be reminded of it again. And that's how it sticks. And as I've said, it's personalized. So adapting to each individual's knowledge gaps, ensuring they only focus on what they need to review the most. Now, we can all take the same course, but each of us are going to remember different aspects. Some will resonate with us, others won't. So in short, we'll end up with different knowledge gaps. And that's what BentoBot's using AI to do, to identify those gaps and therefore serve up the right learning to the right person at the right time. And to keep learners engaged, it uses gamification elements, things like completion streaks, coins, leaderboards, and that makes learning consistent, fun, and hopefully effective as well. And the science behind it and the reporting from it shows that that is the case. So it's a different take on AI. SMEs, yeah, you create the content, but the AI then tailors that content path for each learner. Now, for L&D, BentoBot, again, it offers immense power. It's not replacing your learning, it's helping that learning stick. So it provides guaranteed knowledge retention, moving you beyond the simple, how many people have completed this bit of training, to how many people have actually got this knowledge embedded now and are therefore going to be able to use it. And that's crucial for things like compliance training, where, retention's non-negotiable. You've got to be able to know it and you've got to be able to do it. But also for sales enablement, product knowledge updates, pretty much anything where ongoing mastery is essential. I think back in the past, leaders traditionally relied on, I guess, their intuition when designing content, their gut feel, their experience. And of course, that is obviously important. But what Bento does is its AI provides data-driven insights, predictive analytics, which bits are most people struggling with of this course. And real-time information. We can see how long people are spending on something, how many times are they taking it, how many times are they looping back to certain bits of learning. And if everyone's looping back to the same bit of learning, well, obviously the learning wasn't right in the first place. So the leader's role shifts to interpreting those insights and applying human judgment and making decisions on what tweaks need to be made to the content so that the content becomes as impactful as possible. So rather than just give everyone the same course, the courses evolve over time because Bento allows us to tell us exactly, or allows us that information. So it makes continuous effective learning scalable and hopefully engaging, and ultimately makes it stick. So there we go. 10 minutes left. There are 3 tools that I'm using on a daily basis to create content for our users and to make it stick. But also that I'm using it's fair to say, in my private life, certainly with Notebook LM. I know, my daughters are using it for college and universities. It just works at so many levels. Now, of the 3 tools, which of them is going to replace me? Well, none. None of them is going to replace me. None of them are doing my job for me either. Yet, when you combine them all, I think it's fair to say I am gaining back hours of time to do the stuff that I'd like to think I'm quite good at. And that's using my wealth of experience to create more engaging content for people. Now, I'm just going to pause for a second to see if there are any questions, and then we will sort of summarize and close up the course. So is there anything that's worrying anybody? Any questions? Feel free to pop those in the chat for me, and I'll give it a couple of minutes to take those. Okay, well, I think that means that we're good. That's great. Well, we're going to finish on. Oh, no. Thank you, Monica. Hold. Should you have a policy for AI usage when? Yeah, absolutely, you should, Adele. Yeah. So, I can help you with that, and I can help you shape that. I think it's really interesting. If I can use my daughter as an example, so she's at university and they've had to sign a disclaimer to say they're not using AI for any of their work that they're submitting. But then when you dig deeper into that, what does that actually mean? And what that's saying is you can't use AI to write your dissertation. You can't use AI to write your reports as you would hope. What's interesting is, though, she is allowed to use tools to help her research before she then writes it, which I know that makes people feel a little bit, but that's cheating. But if you think about how she would have done that before, she'd have gone to a library and read 1,000 books, or she'd have done a load of research online anyway, and she'd have done Google search stuff. And ultimately, that's exactly what the AI tool is doing for her. That's exactly what, in this case, Notebook LM is doing for her. It's just putting all those things together. And in fact, it's slightly more nuanced than that, because she's not reading a relevant book. She's only reading things that she trusts, and therefore it's only pulling from those. So yes, I think we should have a policy of what we can use it and what we can't use it for. The other thing I would say is, at the moment, it's also really obvious when people have used AI and haven't edited it. Now, you might think, how do you know that? I was ironically, obviously knowing your background, Adele, my wife, who works in a very similar role to yourself, and she was looking at a performance review yesterday, and I took one look at it and said, that's AI generated. So how do you know? I said, well, there's a load of American spellings in it. Everything's summarized into bullet points and everything's written in weird sentence case. You could just see it a mile off. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't use those tools. What it does mean is we shouldn't just copy and paste from those tools. So it's a bit like an accountant. An accountant can obviously is pretty good with maths and can obviously count. Okay, and yet they use a calculator and they use an Excel spreadsheet. However, when the Excel spreadsheet gives them weird data, they know it's weird data and they go back and see why. Using AI and cut and pasting it is that same problem. It's not you. If you get so reliant on it, you're not going to go back and edit it. So yeah, I'll come back to you on that, Adele. But yes, absolutely, we should have one in place. Okay, so I think we're pretty much there. So in terms of sort of next steps or things for you to do, here's some key takeaways. So firstly, let's be a bit brave with it. Explore Gemini's capability. If nothing else, pop it on your phone and get it to ask you, start getting used to asking it for help. That will help you shape better prompts. As I said before, prompts is where everyone goes wrong with AI. They ask really random, broad things and it can't sort that out. So Gemini's going to help with that. If you are using tools like Rise, you can do free trials of the AI add-ons. And that's going to help you sort of enhance your creativity. Just have a go with it, see how you get on. The one that I would really encourage you to have a look at is Notebook LM. Okay, and that's at notebooklm.google.com. Easy for you to say. Just try pointing it at your company's website, or let it create a podcast summary about what you do. You'll be amazed, I promise you. It's really good fun. And finally, implement space repetition. Okay, think about it. It doesn't have to be with Bento, but Bento obviously is very good at it. But think about how you're making the content that you deliver stick. Because if you're bringing all of your people together in a room for a training session that's 8 hours long, and you do nothing to follow that up within 24 hours, they've already forgotten most of it. And that in itself is a bit scary. So think about how we can use some of these tools to remind people as we go on. Okay, so I'm going to switch back. There you go. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Hopefully the technology held up there as I was flipping between 15 screens and cameras. I'd like to think it did. We're going to close the webinar down now. As I say, the recording will be available to you probably later on today. But thank you so much for your time. We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to follow us on social, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.